My name is Brooke Goldstein. I am the founder and executive director of the Lawfare Project, which is the world's foremost Jewish civil rights litigation fund and public interest law firm. And in that capacity, I run a network of over 600 lawyers and 36 major law firms, including top 20 law firms. And over the past 8 years, we have filed over 140 seminal civil rights cases on behalf of Jewish communities around the world. I also do a little bit of television, and after October the 7th, I kept getting the same question. Every time I went on, whether it's Fox News or Newsmax or ILTV, I kept getting asked the same question. And the question was, are you surprised about what's happening on US college campuses? And the answer to that was obviously no, because people like me and my colleagues in this room have been shouting at the top of their lungs for the past 10+ years. We've been screaming about the radicalization happening in the American education system, and we were met with a strategic, coordinated campaign to silence us, whether it was through slandering, calling us anti-Muslim, racist, or Islamophobic, whether it was through lawfare attacks, legal attacks designed to silence and intimidate us, whether it was through actual threats and the carrying out of physical violence against some of my colleagues. This, what I call the Islamophobia mania industry, succeeded in intimidating not just Americans, but the Jewish community from standing up for themselves. It succeeded in intimidating the Department of Education, the Department of Justice, and the FBI to turn a blind eye to the fact that Qatar, for example, the #2 state sponsor of the Hamas-designated terrorist organization, has been spending at least $1 billion a year for the last 10 years, making grants to American college campuses, which we argue in our recent lawsuit against Carnegie Mellon University. These outsized donations no doubt have played a role in fomenting both anti-Semitism and anti-Americanism on US college campuses. And so October the 7th really was a watershed moment, not just for the Jewish community, but for the world. And if you take away anything today from what I'm saying, please let it be this. We must no longer feel intimidated to talk about the shared threats that we face as a Jewish state and Jewish people and in the West, because they are shared threats. The haters have now come out of their holes for everybody to see. There's no more pretending that anti-Zionism is not anti-Semitism. There's no more pretending that Students for Justice in Palestine is just some sort of benign grassroots student movement. They are not. There is no more pretending that this so-called pro-Palestinian movement is a movement for self-sovereignty. It is not. There's no such thing as a Palestinian democracy movement or a Palestinian peace movement. There's no more pretending that progressive ideology is liberal. It is not. It is pro-terror. There's no more pretending, for example, that pro-Israel advocacy is the be-all, end-all, that we have to convince people to love us. We don't. They have to fear us. They have to fear the consequences of unlawfully engaging in Jew hatred. And the rabbi asked earlier, is it possible to end Jew hatred in our lifetime? It comes back every lifetime. It is possible to subdue it when we impose real legal consequences. There's also no more pretending that we're not entitled to use the legal system to our advantage, as every single other minority community has done in the history of America. impact litigation, civil rights litigation, is as American as apple pie. Okay, if you think about it, every single civil right that we enjoy as Americans is a product of a seminal civil rights case, if it's not expressly written into the US Constitution, which is a living document meant to be interpreted by our courts. All right? Roe v. Wade, women's rights to choose, which was recently overturned. Brown v. Board of Education, which is a civil rights case that was set up that got rid of segregation in our schools. The recent case by the Asian community against Harvard, which overturned affirmative action. Now, name me one Jewish civil rights case that has made its way to the US Supreme Court. None. Jews have been at the forefront of every single civil rights movement in American history. We have marched for Black lives. We have marched for women's rights. The time is now for Jews to march for Jewish rights. And we cannot be ashamed to aggressively pursue them. 8 years ago, when I filed my first lawsuit against an American school, I got a phone call from the leader of a now defunct, what was a major liberal Jewish organization, who was yelling at me on the phone, telling me, who do I think I am coming in? They've been negotiating behind closed doors. By filing my lawsuit, I'm ruining that negotiation, no matter the fact that the very students they were negotiating for came to me and were serving as plaintiffs in our lawsuit. He called me, quote, too aggressive. You're causing anti-Semitism by being too aggressive, he said. Can you imagine a Black civil rights advocate accusing the NAACP of too aggressively asserting the civil rights of the Black people in an American court? It wouldn't happen. But again, October the 7th, a watershed moment. We've woken up. Where we were once divided both in Israel, unfortunately, and home on political partisan lines, we are united now. And we are the eternal people, and we have outlived all of our enemies. And the question is not, will we win? Because we will win this war. We will win the civil rights battle in America, and we will win the war against Hamas. The only question is what price are we going to pay? And when we continue to appease the enemy and we continue to not stand up for ourselves, the price we pay comes higher. And so that is why I'm very, very proud to serve as the director of the Lawfare project, because not only do we file seminal civil rights cases, but we win them. When we sued San Francisco State University for their policy of no Zionists allowed, the Hillel students wanted to table at a student fair. They were denied the ability to table. We sued the school. And what was remarkable to me is that the school said, well, we don't deny. They didn't deny that they didn't allow the Hillel students to table. It wasn't a fact at issue in the litigation. They said, yeah, we didn't allow them to table. But not because they're Jewish, because they're Zionists. And Zionism is a political point of view, and the California anti-discrimination law prevents discrimination based on religion, national origin, sexual orientation, gender, skin color. It doesn't prevent us from discriminating against your political point of view. And to that we said, well, number one, who are you to define what Zionism means for our clients? Zionism is an integral part of their Jewish cultural, ethnic, and religious identity. But let's say you're right. Let's say Zionism is only a political point of view. Only Jewish students are given a political litmus test, as Sasha said before was his experience. Only Jewish students are given a political litmus test as a condition precedent to participate. And that is de facto discrimination. You don't go to the Chinese Student Association, ask them, what is your position on China's handling of COVID? And unless you're a good Chinese American student, you can participate. You don't go to the Muslim Student Association, ask them what their position is on Iranian nuclear disarmament, and unless they give you the right answer, they can't participate. Only the Jewish students are given a political litmus test to participate. We ended up settling that case. We reversed the school's policy, which now reads, quote, that the California State University system recognizes that Zionism is an integral part of the Jewish identity. When we sued the National Lawyers Guild for enforcing their BDS resolution. The National Lawyers Guild is the oldest lawyers guild in America. They have dozens of chapters, thousands of lawyers. They decided to pass a BDS resolution. Well, we tested that. We incorporated a company, our client incorporated a company in Judea, Samaria. They called it Bibliotechnical. And we attempted to buy an ad in the National Lawyers Guild annual journal for a dinner just like this. We paid $200. We bought a half-page ad that read something like, "Congratulations to the NLG for all your activity. Love, Bibliotechnical, Judea, Israel." Well, the National Lawyers Guild, within a couple days, refunded the $200 to the credit card and was stupid enough to write us an email that says, "I'm sorry, we don't do business with Israelis." So they refunded the money. Well, we turned around and we sued the National Lawyers Guild for unlawful commercial discrimination. Day one in court, we settled the case. We reversed their policy. We forced the board to issue a resolution stating that they do not support national origin discrimination. We forced them to send a letter to every NLG chapter saying that if they engage in BDS, they will lose NLG chapter status. And best of all, we forced them to do business with our Israeli client. And this time, we bought a full-page ad. When Hamas, and I have very little time, so I'm just going to rapid fire this a couple more cases, and I'll hightail off the stage here. When Hamas was having their annual conference a couple years back at the Intercontinental Hotel in Doha, in Qatar, our friends at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies alerted us, and we sent a very strongly worded letter to the Intercontinental Hotel, which is an American company, warning them that if they host Hamas, a designated terrorist group, they do so in violation of federal material support for terrorism statutes, and they risk between, I don't know, Michael, you would probably know this better than I, probably about 20 to 22 years in prison. That day, the Intercontinental Hotel canceled the Hamas annual meeting in Doha. We recently filed a lawsuit against Carnegie Mellon University. Some of you may have heard of it. It was really all over the news. And I mentioned the media for a reason. These are not just Jewish issues. The fact that Qatar is engaged in the largest influence campaign this world has ever seen, spending billions of dollars on our hospital systems, our educational systems, is an issue of national security that all Americans must be concerned with. So we sued Carnegie Mellon University, the third largest recipient of Qatari money, on behalf of our client Yael Kanan, a very brave Israeli-American student at the School for Architecture at CMU. She was denied the ability to go to a memorial ceremony for the victims of the Tree of Life Synagogue massacre. Then when she was in her class and they were told to do a model on the difference between public spaces and private spaces, she decided to do a model of an eruv, which is the demarcation between a public and private space for the purposes of carrying laws on Shabbat. Her teacher came up to her and said, "Is that the wall that Israelis use to separate themselves from Palestinians?" She says, "No, this is an eruv," and she explained what it is. To which the teacher replied, "Why don't you do a project on what Jews do to make themselves so hated?" She complained. Her complaints were not only ignored, but she was retaliated against. She was given a near failing grade, and she was told that this is not the school's problem and she should just not attend class. Well, we are suing this school for unlawful discrimination, and I know that this case is going to blow open the influence campaign that Qatar is engaging right now in American college campuses. And just three more very quickly. We just a couple weeks ago filed a lawsuit against Columbia University on behalf of Mackenzie Forrest. I don't have to tell you this, but Columbia University is where the pro-Hamas moms have been walking around campus in violation, chanting and marching around campus in violation, not just of the student codes, but in violation of the law, chanting genocidal chants. They beat up a Jewish student who broke his hand, and they tried to force our client, Mackenzie Forrest, to attend school during Shabbat. When she said, I cannot attend school during a Saturday, they said, well, why don't you ask your rabbi to exempt you from the Jewish laws? They actually told her that, and then they tried to kick her out of the program. And finally, we are representing the 11 students now at Cooper's Union. I'm sure you all saw the video that went viral of the students basically locked in the library while pro-Hamas protesters chanted and threatened them with violence. And I just want to mention one more thing. It's not just campuses. We're so focused on campuses right now. We're suing hospital systems. We're suing corporations for workplace discrimination. We launched a lawsuit against CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is a Muslim Brotherhood front organization and an unindicted co-conspirator in a terror financing case. CARE was stupid enough to go after Tamar Herman, a Jewish teacher, falsely and defamatorily accusing her of ripping off the hijab of a 7-year-old student, because this is all part of their Islamophobia campaign to intimidate and silence us. We will no longer be intimidated, but I need your help. We need to fund these lawsuits. We need plaintiffs. We need the community to encourage our colleagues and our students to stand up for themselves. And of course, we need law firms and we need attorneys to engage in this battle, to donate their services pro bono. And I thank you so much for your time.